Economia partidei Delgado, acolo este, va fi corner, dragi ascultători.
All right. Wait, no. Okay, fine. We're gonna die hard. We're gonna die hard. That's the song Die Hard by Guys Night. Have you ever heard that?
I have heard that, yeah.
It's quite a cute song.
Remember when we first met John McClane?
It's everything I normally hate, but I'm sort of, there's something about that I find completely irresistible. I don't know what it is. And they added the fourth verse for the fourth movie when that came
Oh,
out.
did they indeed?
We're here to talk about Die Hard 4.0 in this country, or Live Free, Die Hard in your country, America, I imagine, or maybe some other territories, I don't know. Directed by Len Wiseman in 2007. First Die Hard movie since Die Hard with a Vengeance. I just watched it again on a flight, which is a somehow even more censored version. There is a bloodier, harder version than the one that came at the cinema, which I haven't seen.
That's the one I have. Yeah.
Oh, you have?
That's the only one I've seen, actually.
Because I've got I had the DVD set that just didn't have that. My ex bought me Die Hard. Yeah, but here's the point. Here's the rub, gang. I don't mind Die Hard 4, and it's one of these when people really, really hate it, and people act like it's a kind of Crystal Skull situation, which it 100% is not.
It's my favourite of the lesser Die Hard, shall we say?
Well, more than Die Hard 2?
Yeah, for me it goes 1, 3, 4, 2, 5.
Well, arbitrary list fans, 1, 3, 2, 4, 5.
Fair enough.
Two's come back round because everyone always hated 2 forever, and 2 come back round for me. I think.
2's less of a. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I still like 2. It's a better day Die Hard 2ing than most other things. But yeah, I would probably rather watch 4 than 2.
Fair.
Probably.
I think 4 has
it
has its problems.
Yeah.
But it feels to me like a Die Hard film.
Yeah.
It's missing some stuff, and I think it's a bit too easy to just go like, well, it's not as bloody or it's not as sweary. Those things are both true and they're both legitimate, but that's not enough. I think it's a bit softer. That is a fact, and it could do with being harder. Also, it's a bit too silly.
Yes.
Because it has to go too far. So him riding on the jet and stuff. But all the stuff that is silly is very nicely staged. It's got a few kind of like 2007 action cliches, i.e. parkour guy. And it's got that kind of look. When it was in the cinema, it had a different kind of colour timing on it, I think. So I think the home release is a little bit cleaner, as I remember.
Okay, yeah.
The similar thing happened with Land of the Dead, on a bit of a tangent. That had a different kind of colour scheme on home video, a much better one. Oh. So yeah, why don't you give me your thoughts about Die Hard 4.0 / Live Free / Die Hard 4.0?
The Die Hard.
The Die Hard.
So I didn't see it in the cinema. I saw it on home video or digital, and I'm sure I saw the harder version of it, whatever that. And I don't know the difference because obviously I've only seen that version of it. It definitely feels like you say. I think because bearing in mind coming in after With a Vengeance. Which had broadened the scope out to an entire city rather than just an airport or a building. I suppose they felt like they had to kind of go countrywide and make it more of a...
And that makes it fit. It feels like Die Hard with a Vengeance because of that.
Yeah.
Because each film has gone up.
Well,
and
he's got his buddy with him as well. Again,
yeah.
He's kind of got a sidekick, and it even more so it leans into that thing that I think even by 2006 was a bit tired, which is tech stuff now, right? You know, and it is a film very much about that as well. Like it's not, I'm not saying it's lazy in that, because I think it does sort of go like, well, if you were going to cripple the country now, you would do it.
And it's based on an article.
Yeah,
about
Fire
that.
Sale.
About Fire Sale, yeah, which I can't remember who wrote it, but it's basic. And that's the other thing. All 4 Die Hards up to 4 were based on a thing in some way or another.
Yeah,
a screenplay or a novel or
for something else.
Whatever, whereas 5 was not.
Yes.
And I just, for the record, Die Hard 5, whatever that's called, is an utterly worthless, miserable experience. I cannot stand that film. I think, and I think that's what kind of throws this into contrast. I did see this in the cinema, and I quite liked it then. And I'm repentant about that.
I enjoyed it. I do like it. It's slightly messy. It's slightly unfocused in the way that, like, whereas something like Die Hard with a Vengeance, even though it's it's chaotic in terms of what's happening, but it's like I do think it acquits itself very well, and it's obviously got McTiernan steering it in very much the right direction, and I really love that film like a lot. That's the one I mainly watched, I think, as a kid, because it was kind of a bit more accessible. It was 15 as well.
It is a great film,
absolutely,
and it's so, pardon me, it's so Die Hard.
Sam Jackson as well. I think that was his real like, oh, that's who Samuel L. Jackson is moment. You know, I thought he was so good.
Yes, yeah.
I think 4 for me, it's slightly neutered, as you said.
It absolutely is, yeah.
That's not to say that John McClane is any less. He's very much. Also, it's the first one where Bruce Willis was into his no offense, bald, grumpy.
But the important thing here is, and it comes across the material, because we all know Bruce Willis's kind of current mental state or attitude, if you like. He is enjoying himself here, and he still has that twinkle in his eye, and I think that's really important because he has that John McClane energy, and by Die Hard 5 that's completely gone. He's just a miserable.
You heard presumably Kevin Smith's story about working on it and all that. He was very much like.
Well, a lot of that's from Cop Out. Yeah, a lot of when he got to Cop Out, he was really in his negative phase.
Well, yeah, but
the stories from
the set of, because he obviously Smith was on to rewrite stuff, and then he got a little role in it and everything, and that's I think I do like it. It just feels like it's like Terminator 2 versus Terminator 3. That's a very extreme, very chalk and cheese kind of thing. It's like that, but closer. So it's like sort of not quite Die Hard with a Vengeance. It feels a bit sort of lent too far in one way, whereas
I think something that's quite underestimated in Die Hard, particularly the first and the third one, there's a real level of fabric in there. I think there are lots of different layers to it that make it sing. And this film has a few of them taken out, which makes it kind of fairly sterile by comparison. And there are a few things like, so Cayman's score, which I've talked about in detail in the Is Die Hard a Christmas film, available now on Val Verde Broadcasting. But it genuinely, there's me with hair in a really cringy video talking in detail about the fabric of Die Hard. And Cayman's score is so important because, as I talked about in that video, he has this Die Hard theme, which he then blends. There are very subtle bits of Christmas music and familiar melodies of Christmas songs in that music, and it's woven in, and it comes in, and there's sleigh bells in it. It's got this kind of festive theme.
Did you do 3?
He did.
Yeah.
And in 3, it's when the Saints go marching in, and it's a similar thing. Yeah. It goes into that layer, so you've got your themes here, and then that down there. Yeah. I've got to admit, I can't remember the situation with Die Hard 2 because it's the one I've watched the least, probably. Well, out of the first 3. Yeah. So I can't remember exactly how that goes. Die Hard 4. The music's by Marco Beltrami, and Marco Beltrami we've talked about before. Marco Beltrami did the score to like the Scream films and Terminator 3. Something we reviewed in the last batch of stuff had a Beltrami score. He's had a successful career.
Just to preempt what's going to happen, you said when the Saints go marching in, it's not that.
Oh, isn't it?
It's the Ants go marching over to hurrah.
Oh, sorry.
Saints go
marching in. Sorry, pardon me, the other marching song. Very good catch.
Someone right there is like,
they've already done it.
It's too late.
They've already done
it. Yeah.
Sorry. No, it's fine. So when you come to the music in this film, Marco Beltrami, I find him a very bland composer who is a hired hand in my view. I can't hum for you a Marco Beltrami theme. He does what he does. He makes lots of money. Good for him. Bully for him. The film reprises the Die Hard themes, but it never goes any deeper. It's just the Die Hard music and then generic action stuff. Right, so there's a kind of like, I think it's like a string kind of thing that the Die Hard movies do, and it does that. So it has that level of flavour, but it just doesn't go, it's like a kind of Diet Pepsi or something, you know what I mean? Like something's missing.
Well, I think, yeah, absolutely. And it is funny that permeates pretty much every part of the film. And despite, and I have to give him credit, like, I think Willis is trying to recapture that everyman magic that was he brought to the first 3 films. I feel like they put him in too much of a Superman type situation in this. I don't ever feel truly worried about John McClane. It's things like you can bowl doesn't he take a extinguisher off the wall, throw it at a window, blow it up, and it blows the whole window out, and he jumps. It's just stuff like that where he kicks.
I like that. I like that because that's what John McClane does. John McClane has this kind of low-key MacGyver thing, and shooting a fire extinguisher, I'm fine with it. It's when you killed a helicopter with a car, and like riding on the jet and stuff, that's too much.
Yeah.
But like when the fire extinguisher thing felt very John McClane to me, because it's like taping the gun to your back or using the machine gun strap as a ladder, or the fire hose around the waist is completely ridiculous.
Those are things that would happen, whereas it's like, that's not what would happen if you shot a fire extinguisher.
If you jumped off a building with a fire hose around your back, you would break your back and
back. Okay, all right, fair enough. But you know what I mean, though. It's like that. Okay.
It's very video gamey.
Yeah.
Like you shoot the thing and it explodes.
Yeah.
Which is literally the case in Rainbow Six, right? You can shoot the fire extinguisher and use it as smoke cover because it goes like.
Yeah. Well, and then they did that in Skyfall. That was very.
Oh, did they? Oh,
which you know, even minutes into that scene, the extinguishers were going. Like, it was like, I think they would have run out.
It's really good value for money.
Yeah,
recompressed.
Not to do that film down at all because I do love it. But yeah, so yeah, I think there's just, it doesn't have the edge that the first ones did, where you felt like this guy could actually die, like even though it's called Die Hard, but you know, he's not a Superman.
And that comes off. That's kind of worn off even a bit by Die Hard 2. So Die Hard 2 is kind of like, how can the same shit have the same guy twice? And you're sat there going like, I don't know, mate, how?
Yeah, I know.
Whereas in Die Hard 3, or Die Hard with it's not called Die Hard 3. In Die Hard with a Vengeance, they set John up in a bad place and it makes him human again, because the fact that I love that it's essentially a film about a recently separated man with a hangover. Who's forced to go into work.
That to me is like, that's actually more the heart of John McClane. It's like you watch him in the first two and he's still trying to rekindle something with his wife. You know, they're still on the rocks, but he's doing it. You know, that both of them end with like a reconciliation. Less so the second one. I think they are reconciled, aren't they? That he's just going to pick her up from the airport.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they are reconciled
because that's the denouement to the first film.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of like, but you can't. He's an anti-hero in that you can't have him start from a place of having anything to lose. He has to be the guy with nothing to lose, and especially in a story like Die Hard with a Vengeance, because it requires that, and that's why it permeates throughout the whole thing. Like that, and that also adds stuff like because bearing in mind in that film he does ride a truck through a flood and comes flying out of a thing, and he does slide down a cable onto and all that silliness. So there are ridiculous things in it, but I just feel like it feels more believable that he's in those situations because he just would, because he doesn't give a shit about anything. It's like,
it's funny, isn't it? You either give him everything or lose or nothing to lose. Because the first film he's got everything to lose. The third film he's got nothing to lose. And I like the kind of, and also something that perhaps is they really lean into John McClane as technophobe or as dinosaur in this one. That goes back to the first Nakatomi Plaza scene in the first film where he can't figure out the computer thing and all of that, and he doesn't understand her job, and that's always been in him.
Oh, he's definitely a man out of touch with the world around him. I mean, that's, whether it's technology or anything else, he's always been that, and that's what makes him compelling and interesting.
He's an unreconstructed guy, in a modern world. So there's the score, okay? Something else I think is kind of not talked about enough is like Jan de Bont's cinematography for the first film, who went on then to direct Speed. But as cinematographer on Die Hard, the cinematography on that film is amazing. It's lush, it's beautiful, it's fully embraces the anamorphic formats and lens flares and oval bokehs. I don't believe so.
I love the way that looks. That does have a very 90s aspect.
That's got a kind of, I like how sweaty. Hot town, summer in the city. It's and again, Die Hard 4 uses CCR in a similar way. Right. Born and raised. Right. Like, so the Die Hard 4 has a motif. The musical motifs of the Die Hard films.
But he also, that's another thing where he's like, like Creedence Clearwater, and
classic rock.
Classic rock, and it's like, that's again, it's even more so that giving it becomes diegetic, it's something that he loves, So.
And that the relationship between characters and music and Die Hard, and situation in music and Die Hard, I think is really important. I don't think it's discussed enough, and it's something that I'm yet again doing. But like it reflects the characters, it reflects the environment, it reflects the time of year. That's all in there. Situationally, it's in there. It's so important, and it's really, really clever music. And then for Marco Beltrami to go like, oh, I know how that sounds, and then I can't remember anything about the music for 5. The look of Die Hard 1, and I think the kind of looks do carry over. Here, the look, the cinematography, the music, and I also think John McTiernan. Because 1 and 3 of McTiernan, and they're great. Rennie Harlin, in my view, did a good job of 2. And he directed one of the best Elm Street films as well. I have to assume that 2 was probably it's that awkward second album that you didn't even do the first one. So it's like I full props to him for pulling out something that is a good film. I do enjoy it. It's just
lesser than I feel most of them. You know.
William Sadler and Robert Patrick, you know, that's one of the big sellers for 2. Maybe we'll talk about 2 one
Speaking of supporting cast, what do you think of the supporting cast for 4?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because
Was it
Cliff Curtis is in it, and
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Cliff. It's nice to see him and stuff, so Cliff Curtis is in it. There's one character called Agent Johnson, which I like that callback.
Yes, of course.
And also Star Trek Voyager's Tuvok, Tim Russ is in it as I think the CIA guy. Tim Russ turns up about halfway through.
Yeah.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead I really like. I think she does a good job.
Good choice for Holly, not Holly McLean. What's her? I can't remember what her name is. McLean. Let's go with that.
John Jr.
Janetta.
It's Janetta. Yeah, she's good. A lot of people criticise Timothy Heffalump as the villain, and I get that, but having watched it again, what brought this on is I was on a plane, and Die Hard 4 was on a plane, as I said, so I watched like a cut version, and also it's my first ever time using Wi-Fi on a flight, which I found really unsettling for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, you're like,
and I think I texted you from the plane, didn't I? Just like we should watch. I was WhatsApping. I was WhatsApping from the plane, just like we should do Die Hard 4.
Right.
Because I just, I sat and watched it because you're kind of captive. And I do own it, I think, in a box set.
Yeah.
Digressing, can't remember what my point was.
Fan.
Oh, Timothy Heffalump, yeah. So I was watching that, and I quite liked him in it. The problem is you're always going to suffer against Rickman.
You're up against Rickman and Irons.
Rickman and Irons. And I even think, say what you like, but I even think William Sadler, who's someone I've got, someone I really love as an actor. The Grubers are the ones, right? They're the ones, and
I think
they're
so.
really big performances.
It's testament to Sadler though that you're not looking at him thinking he's weak by comparison. Actually, and I agree. I don't think he is. I think he's less rounded as a just generally written as a character.
Scenery chewing evil army guy.
Yeah.
It's not quite as because the great thing about the Grubers is the Grubers are kind of grubby because they put out highfalutin kind of intentions when actually they're just robbers.
Yeah.
And also, you're right, he was an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, is that what he says? Like,
No, he goes, your brother was an asshole. He goes, ha! He goes like, you're right, he was an asshole. You got his number.
You got his number. Yeah, they're awful people.
Yeah.
And it's two really great. Alan Rickman and Jeremy Irons as brothers is a really clever piece of casting.
It's just a shame we never got to see. I think if in hindsight, if for whatever reason Hans Gruber wasn't in the first one, you'd make them both antagonists. Because imagine that.
Yeah, right.
He's so good.
That'd be amazing as a kind of double act. And Timothy Oliphant, I quite like him. I like San Clarita Diet. I liked him. He's not amazing, but I quite like him. I think he's quite a kind of personable guy, and I think seeing him play arsehole, and he's closer to William Sadler than any of the other villains. I think.
This is going to sound harsh. He's not threatening, but actually that doesn't matter. I think if you put him in the right thing, it doesn't. I don't think he's right as an Agent 47 or whatever. I don't think he's.
That's not good casting.
No, and he's not the kind of he can do anything. He's not that versatile, but what he does do, he's very good at.
Do you know what else as well? He says that himself. I saw this great interview with him.
Yeah.
Where you may not like this, but because I thought of you when I watched it, but not in preparation for this. He's on Conan or whatever, and he just kind of goes like, he's talking about other actors, and he goes like, they're full of shit, man. You just turn up and pretend to be someone else and read the lines, and it's just like.
Well, it's extras Ian McKellen thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very. I kind of dig his attitude on that. Yeah. I think the thing is whether it works or not is a discussion. He can't really be threatening because he's supposed to be a disgruntled tech guy. He's very cold-blooded, but he's not like threatening.
That's why I don't mean to take it. I don't mean that as a criticism here because actually I do think that is right. Good casting. He's still threatening enough. Like he's still believable as a sort of high-functioning tech guy who still has enough kind of. He's got the charisma as well, whereas a lot of tech guys will be like, and like just sit and not like.
And they have their cake and eat it, don't they? With his kind of little guy with the glasses, and obviously Justin Long's character and Kevin Smith. And
so he's like enough of a tech guy to be a threat, but he's also got a kind of ego and a personality and all that stuff. And not Lucy Liu.
I don't know her name.
What's her name? Shit.
His hench lady.
Yeah. That's annoying. Maggie Q.
Oh, Maggie Q.
Sorry, Maggie.
And that's also the grand tradition of Die Hard's hench people, of which she then fills the role in this one, the kind of unkillable hench person.
And she's really good at that.
Yeah, she's really great.
Good at that. And you've obviously John McClane's trying to punch her to death.
And I like that. It's the kind of unreconstructed action guy versus the modern martial arts, and it's the same with the parkour thing. I mean, that works thematically. I think and something we've been, the heffalump in the room is, I think Len Wiseman, because I just don't find Len Wiseman to be an interesting director.
Right.
And Len Wiseman did the Underworld films and various other things, which I've never, in any particular way, I've never liked those. I mean, I think he can cover action well. I think this is a coherent film. I don't think it's a particularly interesting one to look at. I kind of feel like, and this is what I was kind of driving at before, John McTiernan was in the frame for this, but because of his being in the frame for wiretapping and stuff, which by the way seems like he may, from what I understand, he may not be as complicit in that as people are making out, but it seems to have destroyed his fucking life. So,
well, I believe it's just the fact that he perjured himself, didn't he, in order to...
Something like
but
that.
Then he's actually guilty of doing anything. It's just because he lied to the FBI, effectively. Yeah.
So he's out of the frame, and I think this script directed by him, admittedly kind of like post-rollable or whatever, but this script directed by John McTiernan I think would be a very different kettle of fish. And a better kettle, a shinier kettle, full of more fish.
Justin Long, everybody talks about Justin Long.
Justin Long, I think he does perfectly well. I quite like him in this. I think he fills that role perfectly as a foil to John McClane, because he's the opposite of John McClane and, you know, tech brain. And yeah, they really go in on the kind of tech versus old guy thing. I get it, digital versus analog, I get it. You know, fine. It's a bit kind of heavy-handed, but it works. It works. And the gag at the end about like him and Lucy McClane, she's kind of like, John like shuts him down about like wanting her number, and then when he gets in the ambulance, she goes like, "Was he asking about me?" It's kind of quite a cute little thing.
I think as well, like he could so easily have been a kind of Gus Gorman character in that, you know, there's even a line I think where he says, "How do you know how to do this?" And he goes, "I don't know." Like, and then it's kind of like if you're good at computers, it's like some inherited thing, and it's like. But again, Justin Long kind of sells that kind of stuff quite well. Like, it's like, even though he says that, it's still believable. You know what I mean? It's things like that.
We have that moment though. Because that bit of dialogue stuck out to me. It's like, how do you know this stuff I don't know? Yeah. I was with some friends the other day, and someone said something about butterflies, and I was kind of like, and then I said, "Oh well, we're not lepidopterists." And they were like, "What's a fucking lepidopterist?" And I was like, "You know, someone who collects butterflies." It's like, how do you know that? And I'm like, I actually don't know how I know that. It doesn't make me a super genius, but there are certain things you just absorb, and I think skills like that. There are certain things I know how to do, and I couldn't tell you where. I mean, I know how to build a computer from scratch, right? I don't know how or when I learned that. I didn't go to classes for it. I didn't just magically fucking absorb it. I learned somewhere through practice and whatever. But like, you just absorb certain things. That bit of dialogue kind of stuck out for me. I just felt like it.
I think it's after he's used the mobile phone to hack into the government, or
like a T-Mobile sidekick, whatever. Like, because Gus Gorman just finds a fucking matchbook and then gets a job
and then literally he says the same thing, doesn't he? He goes, "I don't know." Like, and it's like, well, I believe that. in a different way that I believe in. Well, again, Justin Long sells that line as, but he goes, "I don't know."
Wait,
it's like kind of like, I don't know. Like, I'm not going into that.
I'm resistant to talk about Superman stuff on this channel, but we should probably talk about Superman 3 because it's the best Superman film. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You heard.
That's a Val Verde exclusive right here.
There, you heard.
For more Val Verde.
For more Val Verde stuff. So I think there are a lot of crucial elements to make a Die Hard work. This one is, I would say, this is 70% Die Hard, which I think is more than acceptable. The first Die Hard is the gold standard, that's 100% Die Hard. I'm going to say that Die Hard 2 is, I'm going to say Die Hard 2 is 70% Die Hard. I'm going to give those neck and neck.
Okay.
Die Hard 3 is 95% Die Hard.
Fair.
Write this down. Die Hard 4, 70% Die Hard again. I'm going to say 70% Die Hard. Die Hard 5 is like 40% Die Hard. Possibly less.
I could go for that. Yeah,
yeah.
Because I do think like 4 and 2 just are fairly interchangeable in terms of whether or not, you know, I think 4 I'll watch more. It may just be because it's more modern and it's more flashy bangy, and that for some reason satiates something inside it. Or what, I don't know, but I just find it more of a piece of silly entertainment. It's a bit more gratifying, but I don't think it. I do think it's as good as 2, or I don't think it's any better, particularly.
It's totally watchable.
So I would agree with that.
Like, I've probably watched 2 the most, but it's been a while since I watched 2 because we had a 20-year head start on. I suppose, or whatever. Yeah. I can't remember now the cinematographer for this. Is it Chris Duggan? I think he's Len Wiseman's guy.
Okay.
He's done a bunch of stuff. I think he did Hacksaw Ridge, or he was on Hacksaw Ridge. And going back briefly to, I say Die Hard cinematography has a certain look. This is fine. It's nice. It's very clean. It's probably a bit too clean.
Simon Duggan. Yeah.
Simon Duggan, not Chris Duggan. Sorry, Simon Duggan. It's very clean. It's kind of quite evenly lit. There's some really nice stuff. There's a shot where McClane's on the phone and he's travelling down a corridor, and there's loads of practicals along the corridor, and like, you know, he's moving through the practicals, isn't it? covers him, and there's clearly a lamp on a dolly next to him to get his key light. Or
Yeah.
But it's a really nice shot, really, really lovely, and certain uses of colour in the home version, really nice. Die Hard to me has to have a look. So like I spent hours on top of a car park, getting my look with these very lamps and that very camera, and colouring it and putting in a lens flare, and I even used a special lens I bought to fake out the anamorphic and whatever, because I think it should have a look. Yeah. And this doesn't particularly. Everything's a bit too clean for the most part. Yeah. Very good like vistas of cities. It's very impressively staged. Like all the car traffic stuff, like the Italian Job, you know.
And all the action as well. Like it resists that sort of early, more mid-noughties, like handheld, close, hard to follow stuff. You know, all the fights are quite clear. Even with the parkour guy flipping and dipping around.
Yeah, wides, covered in wides. Yeah. Down the thing. And I'll give. You know, I don't think. I'm not a fan of Len Wiseman's films particularly. They've never really done anything for me. And when they announced Len Wiseman's for this, I was a bit like, ugh. I think he gets it. I think Len Wiseman is 70% Die Hard. Yeah. Like, I think he gets it, and he approaches it, because I don't, from what I've seen in other films, they can be quite kind of choppy. He gets that you have to let the action in these breathe, and it certainly seems that Bruce Willis has a lot of sway in how Die Hards go down, you know, so God knows how their relationship is or was. But I just think it worked well enough. It just doesn't have, Die Hard is in a very specific zone for me, and I think you need to simulate those elements or have them in one way or another, you know.
I question though it's been proven to work. Like I do think Die Hard with a Vengeance proves that you can sequelize Die Hard, but I don't know that you can make it episodic. I don't know that it's a character that works in episode form, because it has to get, because of the natural escalation of everything. Like in Die Hard 4, in this one, he literally rides a sort of, not a Harrier jump jet, but a jet into a fucking freeway or something. Like blows up, it drives a lorry that's getting shot to shit. You know what I mean? Like all this crazy stuff. Shoots the bad guy through his own shoulder at the end. You know, it's like...
In the version you watched, does he say motherfucker?
Yeah.
Because in the sense of when he goes motherfucker and pulls the thing, which is a bit kind of, dude, it's the catchphrase, come on.
Yeah.
But 15's a change now, so now you could have that fuck. Yeah. You have your one fuck, like Judi Dench in Skyfall having her fuck. I hope she says it in Cats as well.
That's a 12, Skyfall.
Oh yeah, isn't it? 12A?
Yeah.
Well, we're closing in on the end of this episode. I've rather enjoyed talking about Die Hard 4.0. Yeah. I think we've fallen into what I will call the Rocky trap, in that we've ended up discussing the whole series to a degree, which then perhaps means we can really talk about the others.
I think we can. I do think it's. I think it's important to talk about it in relation to the other films, but it's in and of. I mean, it doesn't work if it was just an action film. Bruce Willis. It's like, what would it really be?
And it's in danger of being that, and that's what Die Hard 5 is. Yeah, just an action film with Bruce Willis in, and that has to go global, right? Because the previous one was. Yeah. But it does it in a really dull way.
Well, he's not lighting up the box office with anything else, is he? He's turning up in other stuff.
And he's doing a bunch of. He's getting away with murder in terms of straight to video. Yeah. He's just doing those, and no one's questioning.
Yeah. Though I will say, the remake very quickly of Death Wish, he was brilliant in.
Yeah,
he had that sparkle back in his eye, and it was really good. Really
I'm not mad about that film, but I like his performance.
Do you know what I really enjoyed it. I mean, as a film, it's so. But I liked him. I liked D'Onofrio. All that.
Oh, yeah, D'Onofrio's in that as well, isn't he? Yeah. Isn't it Elizabeth Shue his wife? Is that right, or was it?
Could be.
I liked Hostage as well, a bit earlier. Do you remember when Hostage came out?
Yeah.
Hostage was good. Right, running out of time. So thank you very much for tuning in this delightful Monday evening, or whenever you've chosen to watch this. We've got a Redbubble shop. We're on Patreon. We've got PayPal if you want to chuck some shekels in. We've got Twitter, Facebook. Ellie Carley runs our Facebook. Big thanks to Ellie Carley who's been doing that. And also to Angelo Canale, who does our thumbnails. You can find details in the description there below. And I just remembered I got something for you. Rafael Hengelbrock, thank you very much. You sent us some lovely Val Verde key rings, which I'll have to dig out because I've got a big pile of mail from when I was working away. So that's it, running out of time. Last few seconds. We love you. Goodbye, you. Bye. Bye. Support your 7th or 8th favourite YouTube channel by buying crap, tat, junk, hogwash and filth at redbubble.com/people/Val Verde Shop.